You ever fall into a creative rut and think to yourself, if I just buy myself another sketchbook or a new tablet or more paints, it'll motivate me enough to start being creative again? Because I've spent money on this hobby, surely my brain will be tricked into doing art again, right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, that's the devil talking. And by devil, I, of course, mean my predisposed lean towards engaging in consumerism as a means of therapy. Well, as it turns out, there's a much easier and cheaper way to beat art block. And it's time I just stood tall and accepted the facts. It's time I admit to myself that if I'm ever going to get out of these productive dumps, I need to start making fan art of video game characters again. I'm not joking. Nothing really provides me with the same motivation as staying up until 1 a.m. doodling characters when I should be sleeping. So, here I am, ruining my flawless sleep schedule by sketching Ulthane from Darksiders under the cover of night. Let me tell you about Ulthane. Actually, no, let me tell you about Darksiders first. So, 14 years ago... 14? Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. Good God. 14 years ago, when I was a young lass, a sprightly teenager with more prospects ahead of me than Richard Richie Rich Jr., a little video game was released for the Xbox 360. Darksiders. It's both an RPG and a hack and slash video game developed by a company called Vigil Games. The subsequent sequel was, I believe, made by Gunfire Games, and the difference between the first and second game, scale-wise, was astronomically vast. In Darksiders 2, we saw more characters, more weapons, a skill tree, customizable armor build, huge maps to explore. The first one, you were just on Earth and that was it. In the second one, you get, 8 realms to explore, and it was like, okay, Gunfire, you didn't have to treat us so well, but I'm glad you did. I appreciate it. That is top. There is, however, one thing the first game has that Darksiders doesn't. Darksiders 1 has this guy. I mean, the second game does have his brother, just regular Thane, no Ul. So it's got that going for it, I guess. Darksiders 2 opens right off the bat with the narrator telling you that Death is on a mission to clear his brother War's name for a crime that Death believes he didn't commit. And to do so, we learn that somehow he plans on bringing humanity back from extinction. Death. Death is the jacked up hero who's going to be bringing humans back to life. It's actually that kind of juxtaposition that really hooked me in a way that the first game didn't, much as I loved it. But narratively speaking, what a great idea! It's Death bringing people back to life. It's like taking like taking an archaeologist and putting them on a demolition squad. Just characters being forced to do the complete opposite of their job if they want to progress and grow as a person. I love a good oxymoron. Oh, wow, it's this bit. I should probably talk about this. So I have, I had an idea for the shirt I wanted to draw Ulthane in. I mean, I had it ages ago and I've only just gotten around to actually realising it. What are you looking at? This is comedy. I do feel like I'm cheapening his character somewhat, so I apologise for that. I've done worse. Anyway, degrading shirt aside... Oh, and by the way, I'm definitely not avoiding drawing his armour just because I'm doing these sketches without a reference. Could you imagine? How embarrassing. Anyway, Darksiders, right? War is the protag for the first game, and he's great. He really is. He's everything I could possibly want in a protagonist. He's stoic, he's ripped, he's honor-driven, he's ripped, he's a horse guy, his horse is ripped. As a horse girl myself, when I played this, I saw the box art and I was like, oh yeah, this has potential. But, for as much as War had me giggling like a little schoolgirl, well, I mean, I was a schoolgirl back then, I guess, so it's fine, whatever. It was actually one of the NPCs who made me want to go back again and again and replay the game over and over. Back when I had a surplus of disposable hours to spend parked in front of the family TV. I'll get to that NPC in a minute. I'm sure you can already guess who it might be. But first, we have to defeat the first boss, Tiamat, who, she's way out of my league. Then you go back to the super morally ambiguous demon Samael, who tells you need to go and find the second chosen, the Griever or whoever. And then you hear the name Ulthane. Sammy tells War we need to remove Ulthane because he's supposedly an obstacle who's going to stand in our way of progress. And you know War isn't about to let anyone do that. No one and no thing stands in War's way, right? We've already established that in the first quarter of the game. So off we trot to kill this guy Ulthane, and you get to this place where War tries to pick up a hammer and is just completely emasculated by it. I mean, this guy has been shown to pick up cars and lob them at enemies. And not little Fiats either. He's been pitching estate cars and police cruisers up until now. But a hammer is what finally defeats him? We love to see it. And then suddenly, there he is, Ulthane Blackhammer, sitting on top of a car bonnet as if to say, well, 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 looks like the motor car murderer has finally met his match. What a power move. And I remember thinking so clearly in my head, I was sitting in my dad's chair, watching this guy appear on screen, and I just thought to my little self, sorry, War, you've had a good run, but you're not my favourite character anymore. In fact, who the is War? Ripped? Did I really think War was ripped when this giant dwarf beefcake was just strutting around the game like he owned the screen? I was like, who designed this guy? He was everything to me, reader. He was sporting, he was funny, he was Scottish, so that's 3 of my major boxes ticked already. I haven't felt this drawn to a character since I saw that Keith David alien. You know the one. My parents must have despaired. I think I made my dad sit and watch me play through the whole of Drowned Pass just so I could show him the Ulthane cutscene and be like, hey Dad, that's Ulthane, isn't he cool? And my dad was like, we went through a nightmare trying to adopt you. And for what? I guess they assumed I'd be more like my friends. They were all at that age where they were getting super into guys. But when I say guys, I mean the guys from 1D or McBusted. Absolutely nothing wrong with having crushes on those guys, they just weren't for me. Not Eleanor. Oh no, I was into Hercule Poirot, Eddie Riggs from Brutal Legend, and this guy. I think I made War stand there when we were meant to fight Ulthane and just let him take a beating from this tank because I thought he was so cool, he hadn't attacked us outright, and no way was I going to be the one to finish him off. That would suck. Spoilers, you don't end up finishing him off, which, phew! Luckily, the righteous Uriel came in to save the day and my new favourite character by interrupting War's fight against the big guy. And Ulthane takes immediate offence to being interrupted. So, he teams up with War to lay the smackdown on some ill-mannered angels, and he sort of makes it into a competition. If you defeat more angels than him, he just straight up gives you an amazing weapon enhancement which boosts your experience or something, I can't remember, which I think was very good of him. He didn't have to do that. War, say thank you. War, say thank you to the nice maker. Ulthane, for me, always felt very authentic, very vivid as a character, more so than Samael or the Watcher or Abaddon. I mean, from the get-go, Samael, the big bad, I guess? Samael points out that Ulthane is not on the Destroyer's side, which by default puts him on Team War in my books. Enemy of my enemy and all that. He's the first character who doesn't seem to have any kind of insidious plot to use War for his own gains. But he is hiding something. That much is obvious from the start. He hides the fact that he's the Black Hammer. And it takes War saying, hey, I know who you actually are, before Ulthane will confront him. And this sets up quite a crucial aspect of Ulthane's character in your very first meeting. This maker keeps secrets. Spoilers ahead, by the way. You don't find out Ulthane's biggest secret until much later in the game, and when you do, oh boy.
I trusted you!
Turns out Ulthane was kind of complicit in the plot to break the 7 seals that were made to keep the peace between heaven and hell so that the 2 factions didn't, go to war and unleash Armageddon on an unsuspecting Earth. Haha, oops. By this point, we learn that Ulthane was the Maker who, upon request from his old pal Asriel, forged a weapon that was strong enough to break the seals. Though I think in his defence, I don't believe either he or Asriel knew that Abaddon had already become the Destroyer by the time he approached them for their help in his weird little scheme. Anyway, the game ends, and for a long time afterwards, I had Ulthane just lingering in the back of my mind. And every now and again, something would bring him up, and I'd ask myself, I'd say, hey, remember when you were a huge fan of that massive Scottish giant from Darksiders? Remember that phase? Do you remember that? And I'd be like, yeah, I get it, that was a bit strange, but hey, who hasn't had a weird phase or two? I mean, what does my mum see in my dad? I'll never know. I suppose these things are just a mystery for the ages, like my fixation on Ulthane. Glad it's over, though. And then, in 2018, another game came out.
Here we go again.
Turns out Gunfire weren't finished. They stuck Ulthane in Darksiders 3, a prequel to the first and second game, only this time he was the self-appointed guardian to a group of humans who survived the initial wave of the apocalypse. And I don't care who you are, if you give me a character who is super strong, grizzled, did bad things in his past, but he's trying to atone for them now by protecting the people he's wronged, I'm into that. Respectfully, of course. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, goodness knows it wouldn't be the first time, but it is established in your very first meeting with Ulthane that he is on War's side. I mean, yeah, they get into what through his dialogue feels more like a playful scuffle than a fight to the death, but as soon as Uriel shows up to challenge War, Ulthane changes things up. He's suddenly helping the Horsemen, and that comes full circle, tying in really neatly by the end of Darksiders 3. There's this bit where Fury asks Ulthane to help her brother if they ever meet in the future, and they do. So, it's established, Ulthane is your first real ally in both games. Your first trustworthy ally, I should think. I mean, you do have other characters who don't attack you, but I wouldn't say Vulgrim was trustworthy. I definitely wouldn't say Samael was trustworthy, even though he does seem to be helping the Horsemen to a degree, albeit to suit his own interests. Ulthane just happens to have made a bad judgment call, which resulted in the destruction of humanity, but he was the only one of the three who made that initial mistake and decided he'd try and put things right, which is commendable. Abaddon sort of had a breakdown and became the Destroyer. Asriel became just, obsessed with beams. Now, in his defense, he was imprisoned by Straga and couldn't really do a lot, but it was Ulthane who seemed to actually care about what happened or will happen to humanity on the back of this war. And I'm biased, I'll admit, because I myself happen to be human for the most part. And, well, the crux of it is, I just like that these games weren't afraid to make humans not the bad guys for once. It was a force completely outside their understanding and control that led to their inevitable downfall and the destruction of Earth. And humans weren't the ones who ended up destroying the planet and each other in the process. And I think that's quite a refreshing take, and I respect the writers for doing that. I respect them a lot. If you follow the franchise at all, you start to get the impression that humanity and humans in general are the real punching bags of the universe, which some of us might relate to, some of us might not. Who's to say? Not me. And, speaking of the humans, hot take. But in the third game, we're quite pathetic little things. I mean...
Please, no, just kill me.
Now stop your blubbering, human. Come to me.
Now!
Oh, who am I kidding? In all honesty, I'd be the exact same if some tall, scary, angry horse lady dropped down into my hiding place in the sewers. I'd probably ask her to end it all too. Ma'am, I live here. You broke into my house. Either finish me or get out. I mean, I am seeing why Ulthane thinks he needs to look after the humans. Look at them. But at least I can feel well represented in a video game for once. Humans are relatable. And it's like, wow, finally, some representation I can get behind. I know I say this a lot, but she is literally me. What was the original point of this video? I lost track. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Darksiders. So why Darksiders, right? 14 years and I'm still singing its praises. It's not the perfect game. God knows I've stopped looking for perfection in the things I play. Because video games, I believe, like art, are pretty subjective. I mean, what's really more important, to play a game that's completely without flaw, or to play a game you enjoy, a game that gets you excited to write or make art again, and has you talking with strangers who soon become friends and just finding connection with people from all over the globe who share similar interests? And if I wasn't such an emotionally repressed Brit, this next part would sound way more heartfelt than it probably does. Darksiders is a good game because it made me friends I never would have known otherwise. Being vulnerable and genuine. Oh, wow. Takes it out of me. I'm going to need a second to recover. Please excuse me for a moment. You want to know what the worst thing about that shirt is? My dad owns that shirt. That's where I got the idea from. Yeah. Well, if you've made it this far, you're probably wondering why I've barely mentioned the actual art going on in the background. Honest answer? I forgot to talk about it. Even more honest answer? There isn't one. I cannot be more honest than I was distracted talking about the games and Ulthane, and I entirely forgot he was the main subject of this fan art. You know, I'm actually looking back at this and realising how slow I am making this drawing. But you know what? That's fine. I'm slow at creating content. I work full time. I'm trying to run a business. I'm illustrating another children's book. I'm not cut out for content farming. I've slowed down a lot lately, which is part of the reason why I want to make more of these videos. You know, give me something else to focus on, keep track of what I've done, what brings me motivation, etc. Kind of like a visual diary. Because I haven't tried that before. Writing a diary has not taken off. But you know what? I've really enjoyed this. I've had fun sitting down and sketching my favourite character again. Right, well, if you've enjoyed this extremely erratic ramble about Darksiders, please consider giving the video a like or comment, just to chat. I enjoy communication greatly. If you didn't enjoy it, I'm sorry. I mean, you can tell me you didn't enjoy it, but I'll probably get all mopey and pout about it for a while. Oh, if there's a different character you want me to draw, just let me know in the comments. On that note, my bed has never looked so inviting. What time is it? Is that the sun?